From Jorge Masvidal's disrespectful post-match celebration to Khabib being insulted by Conor McGregor's teams. These are some moments where fighters just did not want to give up even after the bell had rung. So let's start with Antonio Silva and Alistair Overeem, the two heavyweight beasts who went to war in the octagon and beyond. Back in 2013, Bigfoot Silva and Alistair Overeem were both top contenders in the UFC's heavyweight division, and naturally both were hungry for a shot at the title. The build-up to their fight was pretty heated, with Overeem talking trash and dismissing Bigfoot as a mere stepping stone on his way to the championship. However, Overeem had his own demons to face. He had been pulled out of a title bout against Junior Dos Santos due to failing a drug test for elevated testosterone levels. This added to the drama and tension surrounding the fight. So when the two fighters finally met in the octagon at UFC 156, they wasted no time in throwing bombs at each other. Overeem seemed to dominate the first two rounds. In the third round, however, Bigfoot unleashed a furious flurry of punches that rocked Overeem and sent him crashing to the mat, as Silva pounced on his fallen foe and rained down more punches. It seemed like the fight was over. But wait, there's more. Bigfoot then stood over Overeem's limp body and kept taunting him with words and gestures that weren't fit for TV. Referee Herb Dean tried to intervene and separate the fighters, but Bigfoot broke away and continued to yell at his dazed opponent. The crowd and the commentators were stunned by the surreal and savage scene that unfolded before their eyes. But let's talk about another incident that's a bit less intense. It's Paul Daley going beyond the match. Daley and Josh Koscheck were set to square off in the octagon, and things were already tense between the two. Koscheck, known for his ability to get under his opponent's skin, was doing just that with Daley. He, on the other hand, was known for his powerful kickboxing skills. But even after all that, Daley's attempts to provoke Koscheck into a stand-up fight were in vain. Koscheck instead took the safer route and relied on his wrestling skills to control the fight. But that did not stop him from trash-talking Daley throughout the match, even faking an illegal knee to the head. As the fight ended, Daley's frustration boiled over, and he threw a left hook at Koscheck with his back turned. A rematch was teased, but Daley's career was in no way or form for that. In fact, he ultimately retired from MMA. Koscheck continued his career in Bellator, but his winning streak did not last, and he too soon opted for retirement. This is just one example of how intense rivalries get, and while trash talking might seem like a very entertaining and important part of fighting, it's usually brought more trouble than good for anyone. Take for example how Conor McGregor provoked Khabib Nurmagomedov. The highly anticipated UFC 229 took place on October 6, 2018. In the lead up to the fight, Conor had indulged in below-the-belt commentary on Khabib's personal life, from his parents to his religion. He made comments about everything, even offering him alcohol when he knew he didn't drink. Khabib, on the other hand, remained calm for the most part, refraining from replying with similar insults. And of course, tensions were high. During the fight itself, Nurmagomedov dominated McGregor and ultimately won by submission in the fourth round. However, it was what happened after the fight that caused the biggest controversy. Immediately after the fight, Nurmagomedov jumped out of the cage and started fighting with members of McGregor's team, all who were seated at ringside. Chaos erupted as security personnel and officials tried to intervene, and it took several minutes to restore order. It later emerged that the cause of the melee was a personal insult directed at Nurmagomedov by McGregor's teammate Dylan Dennis. Feeling disrespected, he decided to take matters into his own hands and confront Dennis, which then quickly escalated into a full-blown brawl. The incident sparked a wave of criticism and condemnation from both fans and fellow fighters, but it was clear who was the bigger culprit in the mess. Still, Nurmagomedov was fined and suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for his actions, but McGregor also faced disciplinary action for his role in the incident. Though it was an unfortunate outcome, Khabib's jump over the fence and a straight kick towards his rivals became an iconic pose. And speaking of flying kicks, let's speak of Jorge Masvidal. It all started with Ben Askren's highly anticipated entrance into the UFC. The wrestling standout came in with a lot of hype and immediately started calling out the entire welterweight division, including one man in particular, Jorge Masvidal. Things started to heat up between the two as they traded insults throughout the build-up to their UFC 239 fight. Askren was known for his trash-talking abilities, but Masvidal got the last laugh in a way that no one could have predicted. In just 5 seconds, Masvidal landed landed a flying knee that sent Askren crashing to the mat, out cold. It was the fastest knockout in UFC history and left fans in shock. But that's where it gets interesting. Masvidal wasn't done yet. While Askren lay there completely lifeless, Masvidal thought it would be a good idea to land a few more punches onto him. And so he did. He produced 2 more punches toward Askren, who was obviously too knocked out to respond. But even then, his appetite for knocking down a wrestler wasn't done. He taunted Askren, slapping the canvas for a pro wrestling style count and imitating his rival's fall to the floor. While it was massively disrespectful, it sure provided so much entertainment for the fans that it became one of the most iconic moments of UFC history. But none of those come even close to what I'm about to tell you next. So, for the last entry, let's talk about Shinya Aoki. The infamous MMA fight between Aoki and Mizuto Hirota is probably one of the most disrespectful moments in MMA. Sure, the stakes were high in the match as both fighters were representing their own organizations in Japan, but it didn't give any of them permission to do what one of them did eventually in the match. From the start, Aoki was determined to win, so he played it that way, quickly taking the fight to the ground, where he targeted Hirota's arm. He was soon able to apply a hammerlock on his opponent. However, at that moment, all rules, regulations, and ethics of a fair game faded away from his mind. It's one thing to apply a hammerlock, but he went hard on it, applying it with full force. You would think that it was just a way to get Hirota to tap out, but it wasn't. In fact, despite being in so much pain, Hirota refused to tap out. In response, Aoki thought it was a good idea to apply more pressure. And then something truly horrific happened. Hirota's arm literally broke. But this story keeps on getting more painful. What was crazier than that was that even when the match had clearly ended, Aoki continued to put more pressure on the arm. This not only means that Aoki had no regard for his opponent's health and the problems he'd have to face due to this, but also that this was intentional and that he never meant to play by the rules. Now wait, it gets crazier. Even after it had become obvious what had happened, a respectful fighter would try to tend to his opponent's wounds, be it intentional or unintentional. But that wasn't the case here. Instead, Aoki remained completely unfazed and even showed a middle finger to Hirota, who was trying to understand what had just happened. Makes sense why the incident became one of the most hated moments in MMA history. It got criticism not from Hirota's fans, but also from people who were in Aoki's corner. It was a disgusting and horrifying incident, plain and simple, because every sport requires sportsmanship, and Aoki showed none of it here. Not a bit. So there you have it. Some fighters who just did not stop after the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.